going to talk about the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone is unusual in as much as the other bones, as much as it doesn't articulate with other joints as such. So it's located about sort of end of the sort of level with the edge of the mandible here, around the throat. So if we sort of follow about third cervical vertebrae, something like that. And its job is to create an attachment suspension, if you like. It's sort of suspended. It's like a basketball hoop, if you like, sitting around the neck. And it plays a really, really important role. The thing about the hyoid is that, the neck is that the neck is obviously made up of these vertebrae and spinous process at the back. But running down the front of the neck is our trachea and our esophagus, so we have to swallow and breathe. Now you can't swallow and breathe at the same time, and there's a little epiglottis across the top of it that closes the trachea down when you try and swallow. And so, if you've all tried to swallow and breathe just now at the same time, then, well, you know what happens if you're laughing and you try and drink a cup of tea at the same time it comes out your nose. So the thing about the trachea and the esophagus is that they need to move with our head and neck movement. So if we were trying to breathe or swallow or eat and we wanted to turn our head, we couldn't have the esophagus and the trachea stuck to the cervical spine, because otherwise it would twist every time we did it, and so you get this sort of torsion, and we would choke or not be able to breathe. You go and stay here. For some reason my skeleton hasn't got a hyoid bone in it, I don't know why. But anyway, it's sort of like a little horseshoe shaped bone that sits around on the other side of the mandible. So therefore the trachea and the esophagus are suspended, but of course they have to make sure they don't collapse, and the top of the esophagus and the trachea of course are going into the mouth and the tongue. So the hyoid provides a place of suspension for all of these, and it does that with a really amazing series of structures that are sort of strapped to the mandible, to the sternum, and even to the shoulder blade. So you have the sternohyoid coming from the sternum, thyrohyoid, and cricothyroid, and all these structures are overlapping and overlaying. And then in the middle of this, we also have our thyroid gland is sort of sitting into that as well. Coming down from the mandible here, you also have tissues that are going to attach the hyoid and keep it suspended. One of those is a muscle which is called the digastric. So you have two bellies of it. You have the anterior belly of the digastric, and then the posterior belly of the digastric goes backwards and attaches to the mastoid process. It joins up with the sternocleidomastoid, which is kind of cool. And then we have the structures underneath the tongue, mylohyoid underneath the tongue, and the omohyoid is a very interesting structure because that comes down from the hyoid bone. It comes down, there's a little slip of muscle that it joins onto around the base of the neck, and then it goes backwards and attaches to the shoulder blade. So you've got your hyoid bone up here is attaching down to the back of the shoulder blade. So again, really, really cool little structure. As far as the tongue is concerned, the tongue can also be related to these hyoids. Now we can move the hyoid. It's not one of those areas you want to necessarily massage. So here's a little trick that you can do that helps you to see how much your tongue is involved in your neck movement. So just have a little rotation of your neck and see how far it goes, and then stick your tongue out as far as it will go and move it around from side to side, around side to side, and do this a fair old bit, really stretch that tongue out, move it around side to side, wiggle it around as if you're sort of trying to lick your own ear. If you can, let me know. I'd like to see a picture of that. And then just move your head again and see how much is going on as far as that's concerned, and whether you've got an increased range of movement. A lot of people are really surprised as to how much more movement they have, or how much less clicking or cracking they have. So it could be an indication that some of the structures that you think of as far as the neck are concerned, in the back of the neck, relating to the vertebrae and the sort of cervical spine, aren't just involved in, aren't the issues that are just involved in neck pain or restriction of movement, but it could be easily coming from, say, the tongue or the tissues around the hyoid. Of course, that makes sense. There's a lot of movement in terms of understanding tongue ties and how much tongue ties are involved in all kinds of things that are claimed to be. And you know, jury's out for me. I'm not sure about it, but there's a lot of real keen people that are really keen in relation to cutting tongue ties and doing that kind of sort of interventional work. So you know, it's out there, and you know, I've heard a lot of people speak very convincingly on the subject, and giving good physiological reasoning in terms of how much of that tongue might be related to digestive, even going all the way down into the pelvis. And yeah, I fully concur with that. So that's an interesting thing. But certainly the hyoid is a very cool little structure, and it's not one of those things that necessarily we talk about very much. But I thought I'd just have a chat to you about it.